Hare Krishna, Vanchakalpatarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhya cha Patitanam, Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So welcome to our continuing study of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, and we're up to text 9. You may recall that now Sutta Goswami has begun to answer the questions asked by the sages at Naimisharanya forest. And the first two questions, what is the person's duty? What are you supposed to be doing, and what is the highest goals? These two sort of ones get combined together. So it's Canto 1, Chapter 2, text number 9. First we'll say like this. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So text 9. They've asked him, what are we supposed to be doing with our lives? And so what he's been saying is that this is I'll just read the translation from 6. The supreme occupation, that's the word dharma, for all humanity is that by which man can attain to loving devotional service unto the transcendent Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to completely satisfy the self. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. Text 8, duties, dharma, executed by men, regardless of occupation, are only so much useless labor if they do not provoke attraction for the message of the Supreme Lord. And so now we're up to text 9. He continues this question. He continues to answer the questions. So 9 goes like this. Dharmasya hyapavargyasya naratoratayupakalpate naratasya dharmaikantasya kamolabdaya hi smitaha. Prabhupada's translation of this is, all occupational engagements are certainly meant for ultimate liberation. They should never be performed for material gain. Furthermore, according to sages, one who is engaged in the ultimate occupational service should never use material gain to cultivate sense gratification. Bhanu Swami has a slightly different translation. Material results are not suitable as the goal for the person dedicated to higher spiritual goals. Attainment of material assets is not the desire of the person who is dedicated to the higher path. Here, dharmasya, this is concerning dharma, which is the word that's used here, and a very interesting word we'll discuss at some length, is apavargyasya. Dharma, apavargya dharma. This is Here in the word for word, Prabhupada uses ultimate liberation also in the translation. And that is the purpose, and should not be done for artha, artaya, material gain. The artha, the end is not artha. Kind of cute there, huh? And it goes on to say, for one who is, and this is called a bahuvrihi compound in Sanskrit. Bahuvrihi means much rice, meaning he who has much rice, and it takes the name for that. So when it says dharma eka antasya, dharma eka anta, for one whose aim or end is only one thing, in which is dharma, exclusively engaged in dharma. So that means that for one who is exclusively engaged in ultimate occupational service, if that should happen to produce some income, some material gain, he should not use that as a matter for sense gratification. The Bhagavat Saptahas and all those kind of things that sometimes or people who say, television evangelicals say, you earn 12% while your money works for God. So that is, if you get a material gain, kama labdaya, it's not meant for kama, sense gratification, it says here. So I want to talk a little about, you notice this word that's used here, apavarga, ultimate liberation. And it shows up a number of places and described in different ways. The word here, in the Sanskrit dictionary, it's apa varga. The word is varga with the prefix apa, and it means completion or end. And they say that like pancha apavargacha, coming to an end in 5 days. So it can be for anything to mean you have so long to the end comes. But then it also is used, as according to the dictionary, the emancipation of the soul from bodily existence, exemption from further transmigration, final beatitude. And they cite the Srimad Bhagavatam as the place where this is the main meaning of apavarga. Now, there's 2 places in which Srila Prabhupada glosses this word as, instead of as apa as a prefix and varga as a process, rather he glosses this word as if it was apavarga, which means literally not the labial consonants. And if you the Sanskrit alphabet, if you aware of it, is organized rationally, unlike the Western alphabet. If you have the Bhagavatam, you'll see at the end of the book you have, I don't know if you can see this where they have, see how it's a square, with a grid? These are the rows, beginning with the kaka, beginning in the throat, the gutturals, palatals, dentals, labials, semivowels, sibilants, and aspirants, all in these four. So you begin the alphabet with in your throat, ka, just ka, and then an aspirated ka, with a little breath to it. Then ga. One's voiced and the other's unvoiced. Ga. One, the vocal cord, ka, no vocal cords. So you say ga, you can feel the vocal cords move. So it's ka, 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 ga, ga, and then a nasal, na. I mean, what an alphabet. Where's this A, B, C, D stuff come from? These people analyzed sound and figured it precisely. So that's the one varga, the ka varga. They're called at the first letter ka varga, then cha varga, the row beginning with cha, 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 ja, ja, na. Then dentals. Now you're going from the back of your throat to the front of your mouth. The dentals, now your tongue is against the teeth. Ta, ta, da, da, na. That's what happens. Then, and this is the one, this pa varga is the labials. Pa, pa, ba, ba, ma. See, now your lips are doing it. Pa, pa, ba, ba, ma. And then it has the semivowels, ya, ra, la, va, sibilants, sa, sha, sa, and then ha. That's the alphabet. Now, if you think we're advanced, how come people so long ago figured this out? We don't know it. So this word pavarga, Prabhupada uses it as to mean not, where the prefix is not, pavarga, the row in the Sanskrit alphabet, and then Prabhupada discusses about this, and let me. I have to get this on my machine. I'm going to 7:13:25, and just let me do that. Oh, that's right, it's my notes. Here it is. Canto 7. Text 25. I'm looking for Prabhupada's purport there. I should have set this up. I knew there was something else I had to do.
Second paragraph.
I'm actually meant to get the book and have it with me, so I was open. Hold on a second. Here it is. What did I say it was?
7:13:25.
Oh, I got 35. That's the trouble. Okay. Yeah, so here is, in this text, the word pavarga is being used. Here the text reads, in the course of the evolutionary process, which is caused by fruitive activities due to undesirable material sense gratification, I have received this human form of life, which can lead to the heavenly planets, to liberation to the lower species, or rebirth among human beings. And so when it says to liberation, the word in the text, the synonym apavargayaha, means liberation, apavarga. We've discussed this means. So then Prabhupada says in his commentary, he says, if one uses the human form of life properly, he can elevate himself to the higher planetary systems where material happiness is many thousands of times better than on this planet, or one may cultivate knowledge by which to become free from the evolutionary process and be reinstated in one's original spiritual life. This is called apavarga, or liberation. Then he says, material life is called pavarga because here we are subject to 5 different states of suffering, represented by the letters pa, pa, ba, ba, ma. Pa means parishrama, very hard labor. Pa, pha, means pena, or foam from the mouth. For example, sometimes we see a horse foaming at the mouth with heavy labor. Ba, vyartata, disappointment. In spite of so much hard labor, at the end we find disappointment. Bha means bhaya, or fear. In material life, one is always in the blazing fire of fear, since no one knows what will happen next. Finally, ma means mrityu, or death. When one attempts to nullify these 5 different statuses of life, pa, pa, ba, ba, ma, one achieves apavarga, or liberation from the punishment of material existence. So that's one place where Prabhupada does this. And the other place is in the Nectar of Devotion, chapter 22, where he gives a different take. The word pa, instead of mean parishma, labor, now means here defeat, prarabhava. Excuse me, I got to put my glasses on. Yeah, he says, he glosses it as parabhava, defeat, and pha, pena, foam, same when they're exhaustion. Ba is bondage. The English and the Sanskrit close, bondage. Ba, biti for fearfulness, and again ma, mriti, a different word for death. So it shows up twice like that, slightly different form. So it's a kind of a play on words, just to make you think about these things for this apavarga, yeah, because the dictionary definition is upabridge, from upabridge, completion, to leave off, to fulfill, But that's so anyway. So this is this apavarga. Prabhupada goes on in this purport. If one does not utilize his human life for swarga or apavarga, he falls again to the degraded life of animals like dogs and hogs. So this is anyway. So you can see something like this: pavarga, apavarga. But that's the road to make you think of what our material life is like, huh? So let's read the purports. Did I read the purports? I read that. I don't. I didn't read Prabhu. That's why I got to get back to the content. Canto 1, da-da, da-da, da-da. Chapter 2. So Prabhupada says, his purport is short. We have already discussed that pure devotional service to the Lord is automatically followed by perfect knowledge and detachment from material existence. These things come in its train automatically. But there are others who consider that all kinds of different occupational engagements, including those of religion, are meant for material gain. There's the Bhagavata Saptaha, where Prabhupada talks about this a number of times, where a group of sadhus would get together and recite Srimad Bhagavatam. But they're reciting all, they do it in 7 days, and that means they're doing the different chapters simultaneously. The main guy is doing, 10th canto, and so they read the whole Bhagavatam. So there's a bunch of sages sitting in a circle, and they're all speaking the Bhagavatam together. That's how they do it in 7 days. Because Maharaj Parikshit heard it in 7 days, they think they can do the same thing or something like that. Anyway, so this Bhagavat Saptaha. But in front of each sage, there's a donation cup or leaf bowl or something, and people go around, offer obeisances, put money, and go to the next, offer obeisance, put money in, put money in, and that's what they do. That's the Bhagavat Saptaha. So even reading Bhagavatam has been turned into this money-making proposition, where nobody's actually sitting listening to Bhagavatam. Anyway, so it's not just, it's all over. The general tendency of any ordinary man in any part of the world is to gain some material profit in exchange for religious or any other occupational service. Even in the Vedic literature, for all sorts of religious performances, an allurement of material gain is offered, and most people are attracted by such allurements or blessings of religiosity. You earn 12% while your money works for God. That's another one I heard. Why are such so-called men of religion allured by material gain? Because material gain can enable one to fulfill desires, which in turn satisfies sense gratification. This cycle of occupational engagements includes so-called religiosity, followed by material gain, followed by fulfillment of desires. Sense gratification is the general way for all sorts of fully occupied men. But in the statement of Sutta Goswami, as per the verdict of the Srimad Bhagavatam, this is nullified by the present shloka. One should not engage himself in any sort of occupational service for material gain only, nor should material gain be utilized for sense gratification. How material gain should be utilized is described as follows. So that's his thing here. I once was telling somebody I was actually a rabbi, asking how we lived and so on like that. Actually, I went with a devotee, and there was a synagogue for sale, and we were looking for a new temple, and he saw that we were devotees, and we had some discussion like that. And he said to us, he said to me, or we had some discussion, do you observe the Sabbath? And I said, well, for us, every day is the Sabbath. And he says, no. He says, it's stated that for 6 days you can work in life, and then the seventh is for God. And I said, but everything we do is for God. And he said, how do you eat? And I wasn't going to tell him about prasadam. It was get a little too, but that, how do you eat? This is for me, this is for God. But actually, the Bhagavatam is telling everything is for God. And Prabhupada has taught us how to do that, to utilize everything for God. Who will take care of you? Well, you find out that every devotee who's made some advancement finds out that they're being taken care of somehow or other. Without having made the effort, it's happening. Because, look at Krishna, he's got all wealth, and if you see somebody's, doesn't he take care of them? Why do you have to work so hard for everything for Sanskrit when, And Jesus said, consider the lilies of the field. They toil not, neither do they spin. They're not making money. Just the lily, and then yet, not even the heaven is, or angels in heaven are arrayed as like these, in the Bible. So that's understanding by at least people who are spiritually advanced that you don't have to have this conventional religion, where this is for me and this is for God. We give him something just in case. So here, Bhanu Swami has also a translation from here. This verse. Let me get it up. So as I said, his translation is, material results are not suitable as the goal for the person dedicated to higher spiritual goals. Attainment of material assets is not the desire of the person who is dedicated to the higher path. So, and again, he's following Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's, for the translation, and now this is his translation of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary. So here it says, excuse me. There are 4 types of persons in this world: karmis, jnanis, yogis, and bhaktas. It is said, dharmad arthascha kamascha sa kim artam na sevayet. From performance of dharma comes artha and kama. That is to say, wealth and enjoyment. Can dharma not be used for any purpose? And this is a quotation from the Mahabharata. Thus, the result of the performance of dharma is artha, acquisition of material results. The result of material acquisition is desire, kama. The result of kama is pleasure of the senses. When the senses are pleased, for further gain of pleasure, one executes the sequence starting with dharma again. This is true for the karmis, but does not apply to the jnanis, yogis, and devotees. So Vani says that. So the karmas, remember, a karmi, technically speaking, is a pious sense gratificator. He does something, pious, but he's a karmi. He follows the rules of the Vedas, where the people that we tend to call karmis are actually vikarmis. So he says, this is explained in the verse. And he says, Dharma in this verse refers to control of mind and senses. Sama, Dhamma, for the jnanis, to yama and niyama, etc., for the yogis. Remember Sama, Dhamma, Tapasocham, the list of the occupational duties of a brahmana. Sama, Dhamma, Tapasocham, Shantim, Arjava, Vana, Jnana, Vijnana, yet, so on. And Nama, Yama, Niyama, etc. means the Ashtanga Yoga process that the yogis. So for the brahmanas and the yogis, this is their process of dharma. So it refers to control of the mind and senses for the jnanis, to yama niyama for the yogis, and to hearing, chanting, and other devotional processes for the devotee. Though the material results appear by executing all these processes, they are not suitable as the goal. Arthaya na kalpate. So you may get something, and yeah, it's understood that something may be coming, but that's not suitable as the goal. For after examining the nature of material gain, one becomes detached from it. Now that's very interesting. Examining the nature of material gain, one becomes detached from it. I mean, lots of books are like, you should understand, because it's temporary, what you go through, how you suffer. Anyway, Prabhupada says about people who are karmis, they enjoy a little mental happiness. Oh, I have a nice house. Oh, I had a famous sons. Oh, I have my picture. I will have my picture on a postage stamp. Okay, that's your pleasure. That's it. Whatever. He says, so this detachment is indicated in the text by the word apavargasya. Apavargya means having the goal, or with the long A, of apavarga. The vowel is lengthened without a change in the meaning, as such word as swarga. So he says, it should be understood that by these processes, apavarga is the concomitant result of practice. That apavarga is liberation for the jnanis in yoga and prema bhakti for the devotees. And then he has a quotation from the 5th canto, 19, 19, and 20. I'll just read the translation. In Bharatvarsha, the many destinations, heavenly, human, and hellish, are prescribed to all people because people take birth according to actions in sattva, rajas, and tamas. All these goals are prescribed for the self according to the quality of action as indicated in the Vedas. Liberation is then achieved. And then he quotes again Bhagavatam 1:18-16. O Sutta Goswami, please describe those topics of the Lord by which Maharaj Parikshit, whose intelligence was fixed on liberation, the word being used here is apavarga, attained the lotus feet of the Lord, who is the shelter of Garuda, the king of birds. Those topics were vibrated by the son of Vyasa, that is Shukadeva Goswami. And then again, Skanda Purana, he quotes, O Janardana, O Lord, O Vishnu, that bhakti which is fixed on you is called liberation, because your devotees are certainly liberated. Therefore, the desire of the avid practitioner should not be for attaining material results, artasya kamo labhya naha. This is because for the avid practitioner of apavarga dharma, the practice itself has its own results. In certain actions, the jnanis use material assets which are favorable for sama and dhamma, the Brahminical things, and the yogis use material assets which are favorable for yama and niyama. So here it says, what if you're on the spiritual path, assets come your way, you can use them. The devotee uses material assets for its service to the Lord and his devotees. This is clear. That's the verse, the apavarga. He says here. So the next verse, text 10. Kamasya nindriya pritir labho jiveta yavatat jivasya tattva jnasa nartoyascheya karma bhi. Life's desires should never be directed toward sense gratification. One should desire only a healthy life or self-preservation, since a human being is meant for inquiry about the absolute truth. Nothing else should be the goal of one's work. Bhanu Swami's translation is a little simpler. For one who desires apavarga, sense pleasure attained from enjoying sense objects is not the goal as long as one lives. The goal of life is inquiry into the highest truth. This is in the second line of this verse. Jivasya tattva jnasa. Tattva jnasa. Tattva here means the highest truth. And so this is the inquiry. Jivasya tattva jnasa. What is accomplished by prescribed duties is not the goal. So even if you're doing all your prescribed duties, that's not the goal. Human life is meant for tattva jnasa. That's what it's for. So Prabhupada's purport here. He says, we have already discussed pure devotional service to the Lord. Am I reading 9? Oh yeah. Sorry, wrong purport. 10. Seemed familiar. The completely bewildered material civilization is wrongly directed towards the fulfillment of desires in sense gratification. In such civilization, in all spheres of life, the ultimate end is sense gratification. Just think of Prabhupada coming to America with his box of Bhagavatams trying to tell people this message here. He goes on, in politics, social service, altruism, philanthropy, and ultimately in religion, or even in salvation, the very same tint of sense gratification is ever increasingly predominant. In the political field, leaders of men fight with one another to fulfill their personal sense gratification. The voters adore the so-called leaders only when they promise sense gratification. Have you noticed in the election seasons what they promise? As soon as as soon as the voters are dissatisfied in their own sense satisfaction, they dethrone the leaders. The leaders must always disappoint the voters by not satisfying their senses. The same is applicable to all other fields. No one is serious about the problems of life. Even those who are on the path of salvation desire to become one with the absolute truth and desire to commit spiritual suicide for sense gratification. But the Bhagavatam says that one should not live for sense gratification because it's a selfish goal. You're just concerned about your own happiness, and so you just want liberation and extinguishing of material pains and so on. One should satisfy the senses only in so much as required for self-preservation and not for sense gratification. Because the body is made of senses. They're the karmindriya and the gyanindriya. The gyanindriya are the instruments of knowledge by which the world comes, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling, and so on. The world comes into us. And then the karmindriya, the instruments of speech, movement, hands, manipulation, walking, tasting, both. This is speaking, rather, making sounds. These are all the gyanindriya, karmindriya, gyanindriya, senses of sense knowledge. Right? They're called indriya, senses. But the senses are not meant for unrestricted enjoyment. For example, marriage or the combination of a man with a woman is necessary for progeny, but it is not meant for sense enjoyment. In the absence of voluntary restraint, there is propagation for family planning, that is to say, contraception, and that's what he's talking about. Because, there's overpopulation. We're going to throw condoms out to the people, the native people, out of helicopters, whatever. There is propaganda for family planning, but foolish men do not know that family planning is automatically executed as soon as there is search after the absolute truth. Seekers of the absolute truth are never allured by unnecessary engagements in sense gratification, because the serious students seeking the absolute truth are always overwhelmed with the work of researching the truth, as a capital T. In every sphere of life, therefore, the ultimate end must be seeking after the absolute truth, and that sort of engagement will make one happy, because he will be less engaged in varieties of sense gratification. And what that absolute truth is explained as follows. So this is the you can't stay alive without some sense gratification. Just to take your next breath is sense gratification of a sort. So you minimize the sense gratification, and you utilize your energy for the service of Krishna. And that's the path to actually happiness. Sense gratification, it's like an addiction. once it happens, you want to keep doing it again and again. And then you get misery too, because first of all, uh, you know, your lungs are shot because of smoking. You weigh 3 times as much as you should because of overeating. You've taken different drugs and things to make you happy, and that just kills you, and so on. So, uh, uh, yeah, there can be some sense gratification. That's natural. How much renunciation? There's householder type, and there's brahmachari or sannyasi type. But in any case, the main thing is spiritual realization, and that will actually bring about fulfillment. And that should be actually, society should be organized to facilitate that as much as possible. And you can see that so much sense gratification has brought us more trouble. Global warming, for example, environmental degradation, and on and on and on. So many problems that we have today are all the products of prior sense gratification, unrestricted. And so your trouble costs you, what you do for pleasure costs more trouble. And so what's going to happen is that either voluntarily or involuntarily, you're going to have to tone it down a little bit on the sense gratification level. But then people don't know what is my life for? They have no goal. They don't know. Once they know what human life is for, and once they have some experience of the happiness that comes from spiritual life, then you can. The higher taste is there. Enjoy the higher taste. That's the cookbook, the higher taste, right? All right, we'll pick up there. Now we're going to know the next verse, text 11, describes what the absolute truth is. 12 words or less.
Okay, so if you are on Facebook and you have a comment or a question or anything you just want to share that struck you during today's class, feel free to share that in the comment section. If you're on the phone, you can press *6 and that will unmute yourself, so you can also add a comment or question. And everybody's welcome to use the chat box on Ravindra Svarupa's website, RSDasa.com, if you prefer to share privately rather than publicly. Bhaktim Pala asks, about Krishna taking care of us, this is something I experience very strongly. However, sometimes I have a hard time telling whether an opportunity that crosses my path is Krishna offering to take care of me or Maya alluring me to go off track. How can we tell which opportunities to accept and which to forego?
Well, the general rule of thumb is anytime you make a change, it should be something that increases your devotional service. That's the simple rule of thumb. And I should think that, don't think something that I have to do to reduce my devotional service so later I can do it, but it should be always something that increases your devotional service. If Krishna, who's sitting in our hearts, sees that we really want to increase in devotional service, he really will be giving us whatever facility we need. Anyone who becomes dedicated finds this happening. And sometimes it looks bad, but you have to kind of stick with the course a little bit, because there may be some fluctuations, but you should be able to increase your devotional service. If you use that for increasing devotional service, then he'll change your circumstances again. If we stay in one place and just try to hunker down and don't try to make progress, then he may leave us alone in that. But we want to. But if a real desire, what do I have to do? What's the next thing I have to do to increase my devotional service? You may have to try this or try that to see if it works a little bit. But once you see it, you do it, then you'll see something else opens up.
And I also, on that line, find it helpful to remember that increasing devotional service doesn't always just mean doing more things.
Yeah, that's right.
But also includes going deeper into certain activities.
There's quality and quantity.
While we're waiting for more comments or questions to come down, this analogy or example of looking towards the animals and plants and saying, okay, well, look, they get what they need, so why do you feel like Krishna won't provide what you need? I always have a hard time with that because if you look at the animal and plant world for a few minutes, like, there's a lot of competition. They're actually working very hard, and if they don't work so hard, they might face death.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So any response to that? Like, I always
the quotation is from the Bible. But it is true, you know. I mean, it's a fact. On the one hand, I mean, Prabhupada has given the example. The sun rises, thousands of living beings wake up, and they're all fed within a half an hour. But, you know, one being eats another. That's the other side of the story.
But I guess in a way, like, we've created this whole industrial society where it's like really over the top of making things much more difficult than they need to be, just to have more sense of gratification.
Yeah, if people knew how to do things appropriately, and with the idea of simply trying for what sustains your life, and trying to use your energy in God's service, everything will balance out quite nicely. Mm-hmm. And when there was talk of a lot of time about different shortages of food and running out of resources and things like that, Prabhupada thought that it's because one of the reasons, he said, people consume much more than they should, and therefore others are doing without. Mm. You've taken much more than your share, and now other people are bereft. You're stealing. Prabhupada says that for every person that's on the planet, there's actually enough resources to sustain them. But if people are taking what belongs to somebody else, this is the Ishopanishad, you should take which is your quota and not go for other things. Because people have gone beyond that, then other people are doing without.
Yeah, and the idea that the Mother Earth can actually provide quite a bit more if she's treated correctly.
Yeah, that's the other statement, that if the Earth is satisfied and you're performing sacrifice and doing it, she can produce many, many more, much more than we think is possible. Yeah, that's a good point.
And also just to kind of add on to that, I was thinking when you were talking about how once people know what human life is for, then they can start to tone down their sense gratification. It just occurred to me, I was wondering how much sense gratification occurs just because of people being bored, right? Like, they just don't know what to do with their life, so they try this, they try that. You know?
Yeah.
Just a few comments here. Bhakti Impala says, thank you for your answer, Guru Maharaj, with a smiley face emoticon. And Devadarana Devidasi says, thank you, Ravindra Svarupa Prabhu, for your sweet service. And Kamala Radha Devidasi says, wow, all this information on the pronunciations is amazing. Thank you for all of this. And she also says, happy Father's Day, Gurudev, with a prayer hands emoticon and a heart.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
And I think that's it for today.
All right. So we will resume with text number 10, Bhagavatam 1 to 10.
Yeah, and I'd just like to, just to, as a point of a little bit of an announcement, Ravindra Svarupa will be giving, you don't even know this yet, but he has agreed to give a few classes during a online japa retreat that Ramapada Swami is hosting. You do know that part, but I mentioned it earlier, the dates are July 3rd and July 4th, so just so you can mark your calendars. And Ravindra Svarupa will be speaking in the morning, I think around 10:30 in the morning or 10:45, something like that. But I'll send out the announcement. I just want people to know so they can mark their calendars if you're interested.
Okay, I didn't even know, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Happy to do that.
That's it.
Okay. Hare Krishna. Glories to Srila Prabhupada.